Chapter 281. Being with Wei Dao these few days, Delia also feels that her worth has risen a lot, and she can no longer look down on Jordan. Jordan was stunned, looking at Delia like that, and scolding inwardly, but still gave her Sonia's phone number. With Sonia's phone number, Delia dialed directly. At this time, Sonia was sitting bored in the yard at home, with an unhappy expression on her face. It's been so many days since David died, and he hasn't come once. Do you blame me for talking about him last time? Sonia was entangled in her heart. She wanted to find David, but she also hoped that David would take the initiative to find herself. This kind of contradictory psychology made Sonia upset. At this moment, the phone rang. Sonia thought it was David calling. She picked up the phone with a look of joy, and found out that it was an unfamiliar number. Hello. Sonia answered the phone. Sonia, I'm Delia. I'm at No. 17 Fengwang Road. I want to meet you and talk about David. As soon as the call was connected, Delia said directly, in a domineering tone, without taking Sonia in the slightest. If Delia was given 100 courage, she would not dare to talk to Sonia like this. Now that she has followed Wei Dao, Delia has grown a lot more courageous. You let me go, I'll go, what are you? Sonia was irritated by Delia's tone of voice. Sonia, if you are afraid, then don't come. After Delia finished speaking, she hung up the phone without waiting for Sonia to reply. Sonia listened to the busy tone on the phone, and her face flushed red. What are you pulling? I want to see what kind of cattle you have. Sonia got up and drove to Fengwang Road. When Sonia arrived at Fengwang Road, she saw that Delia was waiting for her. Tell me, what do you want to tell me about David? Sonia got out of the car and asked Delia coldly. I want to tell you that David is going to die soon. Delia suddenly smiled grimly. Sonia looked at Delia like that, her heart was shocked. She glared at Delia and said, what nonsense are you talking about? How could David die? He didn't talk nonsense. David is really dying, because I will kill him soon. At this time, Jordan walked out with the 2 bodyguards of the Wei family. What are you going to do? Seeing this, Sonia stepped back in fright. She felt something was wrong. What are we going to do? You will know in a while. Jordan raised the corner of his mouth. Arrest her. The 2 bodyguards stepped forward to grab Sonia and knocked Sonia unconscious with a knife. Then he put on a sack, threw Sonia into the trunk, and walked away. Delia sneered as she looked at the car that drove away, and the laughter sounded very intimidating. In the villa on the top of Pine Mountain, David has devoted himself to practicing and refining Xiao and Dan these days. Just then, David's cell phone rang suddenly. After picking up the phone, Ruben's anxious voice came. David, is Sonia with you? Not here, what's the matter? David frowned. It's broken. Sonia is gone. I called her, but no one answered, and the car was not at home. She would never be like this. Ruben said anxiously. Uncle, don't worry, I'll go over there right away. When David heard this, he immediately got up and hurried towards the Su family. On the way, David called Sonia several times, but no one answered. At this time, David had a bad feeling in his heart, and immediately called Lin Tianyu. Lin Tianyu, you can immediately activate the manpower you can, and find Sonia all over the city for me, and pay attention to her car. David's voice was bone-chilling. Chapter 282. Lin Tianyu didn't dare to ask any more questions, and immediately activated the entire Jui Hall and the members of the Chalong gang that had just been incorporated. A total of thousands of people were scattered throughout Horendal and began to look for Sonia. David quickly arrived at the Su family villa. Ruben was anxiously walking in the courtyard. When he saw David coming, he immediately greeted him. Uncle, don't worry, I have asked Lin Tianyu to spread everyone out, and there should be news soon. David comforted Ruben. Maybe she went out to play and forgot her phone in the car. Ruben could only comfort himself like this, but the bad premonition in his heart became stronger and stronger. Soon, Lin Tianyu called and told David that the car was found. It was on Fengwang Road, but there was no one, and there was no surveillance around. Lin Tianyu asked around and said that he saw someone taking Sonia away. Boom. Hearing what Lin Tianyu said, David's head instantly exploded, and the bloodthirsty murderous aura on his body rushed out instantly. At this time, David was like a killing god. His eyes became extremely scarlet. Chen, David, did something happen to Sonia? Seeing David like that, Ruben's heart skipped a beat. Uncle, did anyone in the family see Sonia when she went out? David asked Ruben. Yes, one of the servants said that after Sonia answered the phone, she left angrily. Ruben replied. Uncle, rest at home, I will find Sonia. After David finished speaking, he turned and walked out of the Su family villa. At this time, Lin Tianyu also happened to arrive. David got into Lin Tianyu's car and went straight to the business hall. David wanted to find out who made the last phone call from Sonia. This call must have something to do with Sonia's disappearance. Relying on Lin Tianyu's reputation, he quickly found out the last phone number to call Sonia. Looking at the familiar number, David's eyes were full of killing intent. Palace Master, whose number is this? Lin Tianyu asked. Go to Delia's house. After David finished speaking, relying on the co-pilot Wei closed his eyes. Lin Tianyu also understood now, and scolded angrily, this be. TCH, still dare not change. With a kick of the accelerator, the car drove towards Delia's house at a high speed. Delia humiliated David again and again, but David didn't kill her, but he didn't want this guy to gain an inch. Soon, at Delia's house, Lin Tianyu followed David out of the car and rang the doorbell. Who is it? Delia's mother Ethel came out wearing a cheongsam. When she opened the door and found that it was David and Lin Tianyu, Ethel was stunned. David, what are you doing here at my house? Where is Delia? Let her come out. David asked with a gloomy face. She's not at home. What do you want to do? Jami's eyes were dodging, obviously she was lying. Damn, let that stinky be. TCH come out for me. Lin Tianyu stepped forward and grabbed Ethel by the collar, and directly lifted Ethel. This time, Ethel was terrified. Stop, let go of my mother. At this moment, Delia rushed out of the room. David, don't think it's amazing that you know Lin Tianyu yourself. I'm from young Master Wei now. Do you dare to offend the Wei family in the provincial capital? Delia looked arrogant and asked David. Snapped. Without the slightest hesitation, David stepped forward and slapped Delia in the face, causing Delia to lose her head and lose several teeth. David, if you dare to hit my daughter, I will fight with you. Ethel shouted desperately when she saw Delia being beaten. Lin Tianyu smashed Ethel's face with a punch, making Ethel's mouth bloody, unable to say a word. Chapter 283. David stepped forward and grabbed Delia's hair, and said with a murderous look, where is Sonia? Delia glared at David, her eyes full of anger. David, if you dare to hit me, young Master Wei will not let you go. Snapped. 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 David slapped several times in a row. Delia's face instantly turned into a pig's head, and there were only a few teeth left in his mouth. I'll ask again, where is Sonia? At this moment, Delia looked at David's murderous gaze, and finally got a little cowardly. I don't know, how would I know where Sonia is? David frowned, he didn't expect this Delia to be so stubborn. Lin Tianyu, call me. David let go of Delia and ordered Lin Tianyu directly. Lin Tianyu nodded, stepped forward and kicked Delia to the ground, followed by a burst of punches and kicks, causing Delia's face to deform. I said. Delia was beaten to the death, her body was injured, her arms and legs were broken. David squatted down slowly and looked at Delia, who was covered in scars, without a trace of pity in his eyes. I only know that Sonia was taken away by Jordan. I called Sonia and led him out. The person behind it was Wei Dao, but I really don't know where they took Sonia. Delia said feebly, her eyes were full of fear. Because she found that if she didn't say anything, David would really kill her. David's brows were tightly wrinkled together. Sonia was taken away by Jordan and that Wei Dao. The fate of the scene can be imagined. David did not dare to think about it. Jordan, I spare your life, but you are seeking your own death. David was full of murderous aura, and even Delia could feel the murderous aura in David's body, and shivered. Mr. Chen, what should we do next? Lin Tianyu asked. Send people to surround the Xiao family, and the Xiao family is not allowed to let go. David said coldly, the cold murderous aura on his body was constantly rising. Understood. Lin Tianyu nodded, and immediately called and sent someone to surround the Xiao family. Sonia is fine, otherwise I'll let you all be buried with you. After David slammed down a sentence, he got in the car and left, and went straight to Xiao's house. In an abandoned factory on the outskirts of Horrendal. Wei Dao sat on a chair, smoking a cigarette, admiring the sleeping Sonia. Beautiful, so beautiful. Wei Dao has a smug look. Master Wei, should we notify David to come over? Jordan couldn't wait any longer. He hoped to kill David as soon as possible, so as not to have too many dreams at night. Get out, I'll tell you when to notify that David. Wei Dao gave Jordan a cold look. Jordan was so frightened that he hurriedly backed out. Soon, Sonia woke up. When she saw that she was tied up with 5 flowers, her face was full of panic and panic. Sonia, don't be afraid, I won't hurt you, I'm just here to chat with you. Seeing Sonia awake, Wei Dao hurriedly said. Wei Dao. Sonia's face was full of surprise. What did you arrest me for? No, you misunderstood, that Jordan caught you, and I came to save you. As Wei Dao said, he stepped forward and untied Sonia's rope. Seeing Wei Dao untied the rope for herself, Sonia's dangling heart relaxed a lot, and her face became more beautiful. What the H3LL is going on here? Sonia asked, moving her wrist. Then Jordan is still ruthless about David, so he arrested you and wanted to lead that David over and kill David. Wei Dao explained. When Sonia heard it, she panicked. Wei Dao, call me quickly, I want to call David, don't let him be fooled. Wei Dao looked at Sonia's nervous look, and a trace of jealousy flashed in his eyes. It's just a labor prisoner, do you care that much? Chapter 284. Sonia was stunned for a moment, looking at Wei Dao's expression. A bad premonition flashed in her heart. Wei Dao, what do you mean? What do you mean by me? Wei Dao's face became a little grim. I pursued you for so many years, and you didn't give me a chance, but now I like a labor prisoner. How can I be inferior to that David? Wei Dao growled and grabbed Sonia's arm tightly. Wei Dao, who told you all this? Sonia finally understood that Wei Dao was far away in the provincial capital and even knew what happened recently in Horrendal. Someone must have told him. You don't need to worry about it. Tell me, why am I inferior to that David? The strength in Wei Dao's hand increased by a few points, which made Sonia feel pain and frowned. Let go of me, you hurt me, you are no better than him. Sonia looked at Wei Dao with disgust. TCH. Wei Dao said, slapped Sonia's face, and Sonia's face instantly turned red. I tell you, today I will let you watch your David die in my hands. No one can take away my Wei Dao's woman. Wei Dao stared, gritted his teeth. Wei Dao, if you dare to touch David, I can't spare you. Sonia yelled angrily. The more you are like this, the more I will torture this guy. After Wei Dao finished speaking, he walked out of the room and slammed the door shut. Wei Dao, let me out, if you dare to touch David, I will never forgive you. Sonia slammed the door desperately, but to no avail. In the end, Sonia was tired, leaned on the wall, and silently prayed for David. David, please don't come. On the other hand, Xiao, as the head of the Xiao family, was holding a meeting at home for everyone and sent 2 real estate companies to David. Although the Xiao family was saved, it also hurt the Xiao family. The 2 real estate companies, which are nearly half of the Xiao family's property, just handed it over to others. In the future, whenever my Xiao family is outside, keep a low profile for me. Now our Xiao family is different from the past. In addition, the staff arrangement needs to be adjusted. Xiao sat on the main seat and followed the Xiao family with a solemn expression. Master, it's not good, someone surrounded the Xiao family. At this time, a servant hurried in and reported anxiously. Who is it? Xiao suddenly became angry. Although my Xiao family is different from the past, it is not bullied by anyone, so let me go out and see. Xiao said a word, and everyone in the Xiao family got up and walked out. But as soon as he walked out of the door, Xiao was stunned for a moment, and then an angry smile appeared on his face. It turns out that Mr. Chen and Lord Tiger are here, please come in quickly. After Xiao finished speaking, he gave the servant a stern look. He didn't know how to go into detail about this FCU King report. If he knew that David and Lin Tianyu were here, he didn't dare to come out aggressively if he had the guts. The servant also had an innocent look on his face. Before he could finish speaking, Xiao rushed out angrily. David's face was indifferent and his face was very ugly, while Lin Tianyu's eyes flashed with murderous intent, and said to Xiao, where's your son Jordan? Let him get out. When Xiao heard this, his heart sank. He knew that his son must be causing trouble again. Master Hu, my son is not at home. I asked someone to contact him just now, but I couldn't get in touch at all. Xiao trembled all over. He did contact Jordan just now. After all, there was a family meeting, and Jordan was not present, but he couldn't contact him at all, and Xiao didn't wait for him. Who the FCUK are you kidding? Lin Tianyu stepped forward and picked Xiao up. Chapter 285. Master Tiger, I really didn't lie, I really can't contact my son, I swear. Xiao face turned pale with fright, and his body trembled even more. Lin Tianyu, let him go. David saw that Xiao did not lie. Lin Tianyu let go of Xiao, which made Xiao heave a sigh of relief, and then asked cautiously, Mr. Chen, Lord Hu, I don't know what my son-in-law has done to offend the two of you. HMPH, then Jordan not only offended us, he even offended the Su family, he kidnapped Miss Su. Lin Tianyu snorted coldly. Boom. When Xiao heard this, he almost didn't fall down. This villain is so bold, dare to kidnap Miss Su. Xiao eyes were full of horror, who didn't know what the relationship between Sonia and David was. In addition, the Su family is the richest man in Horrendal. Don't look at the conflicts between the two families, and no one is serious, but if this kidnaps Ruben's daughter, then the Su family will not give everything and beat the Xiao family directly. Someone has already confessed, and it was Jordan who did it. There's nothing wrong with this. Lin Tianyu said with a gloomy expression. Nizi, Xiao Yan beat his feet and stomped his chest, shouting at the Xiao family, you all go to me to contact this Nizi, let him get back, I will definitely break his legs. Everyone in the Xiao family went to contact Jordan, and at this time David's cell phone did ring. After the connection, Jordan's proud and arrogant voice came, David, now Sonia is in my hands, if you want her to be fine, just obediently come to this abandoned factory in the western suburbs of Horrendal, remember, you only allow one person to come, otherwise I can't guarantee Sonia's safety. Okay, if you dare to touch Sonia's hair, I will let everyone in your Xiao family be buried with you. David's face was gloomy, and the piercing murderous aura on his body instantly filled the entire Xiao family. Feeling the murderous aura on David, Xiao Yan shuddered and yelled at Jordan, Beast, you quickly let Miss Su go and come back to apologize. Jordan was stunned for a moment, but said viciously, Dad, don't worry about this, David doesn't dare to do anything to the Xiao family, we have a backer behind us now. After hearing this, David showed a sneer, isn't the backer you're talking about the Wei family in the provincial capital? Today, the King of Heaven is here, and no one can save you. David, don't talk shish. I tell you, if you dare to be disrespectful to my family, I will play Sonia first, and then send out all the photos. I think you are crazy. Jordan didn't care about David's threat at all. Now he can only gamble and hold the Wei family's thigh tightly. You dare. David gritted his teeth, 2 words popped out of his mouth, and blood-red color began to fill his eyes. Ha ha ha, see if I dare. Now that Sonia is in my hands, I can do whatever I want. You beg me. If you beg me now, I can wait for you to rescue her. Jordan laughed loudly, his tone extremely arrogant. David gritted his teeth, and after a while he said, please don't touch Sonia. Ha ha ha, that's right, hurry up, I don't have much patience. After speaking, Jordan hung up the phone. David's murderous aura rose to the extreme, and he said to Lin Tianyu, okay, don't leave alone. Mr. Chen, shall I go with you? Lin Tianyu said worriedly. Although he knew that David was very strong, the other party was obviously prepared and was waiting for David in advance, so this trip was definitely dangerous. Don't worry, it's just these jumping clowns, I haven't paid attention to them yet. After David finished speaking, he turned around and left. Xiao Yan looked at David's back, and sat on the ground with a thud, he knew that his son was definitely dead. Master. The servant hurried forward to help Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan waved his hand, go and prepare the funeral for the young master. Chapter 286. The gate of the abandoned factory in the western suburbs of Horrendal. A white off-road vehicle was parked there, and David walked down full of murderous intent. Coming. Seeing that David came alone, Jordan was both excited and nervous, and then said to Wei Dao, Master Wei, this David is really strong, you can be sure that these 2 bodyguards can beat this David. Is it even? When the 2 Wei family bodyguards heard this, their faces suddenly turned cold, and one of the bodyguards smashed at a huge cement block. Whoa. The cement block shattered into countless pieces, and the steel bars inside were exposed. Jordan was stunned when he saw this. Seeing Jordan's shocked look, Wei Tao's face was full of disdain. These 2 are both masters at the peak of internal strength. It's easy to kill a cow with 1 punch. Do you think it's possible to kill a person? Yes. Jordan nodded desperately. Even if the 2 of them can't deal with David, isn't it still me? As Wei Dao said, he took out a dark pistol from his pocket. Click. Wei Dao loaded the bullet in front of Jordan and said with a faint smile, even if David is so powerful, can he still escape the bullet? Ha ha ha, then David is dead today, no one can save him. Jordan felt relieved when he saw the gun in Wei Tao's hand. As the saying goes, no matter how skilled he is afraid of a kitchen knife, not to mention the gun in Wei Tao's hand. Sonia heard the conversation between the 2 people inside. After knowing that Wei Dao had a gun in his hand, she was very anxious. She couldn't let David take risks for herself, and she couldn't watch David die, but she was locked in the house now. There is no way to tell David at all. At this time, looking at the abandoned factory building in front of him, David stepped in, a trace of spiritual energy emanated from David's body, and he could instantly sense objects within 10 meters. When David walked into the factory building, he saw 2 bodyguards with cold faces standing on the left and right. The 2 were strong, and it was obvious at a glance that they were trainees. On the other hand, Jordan sat on a chair with her legs crossed, and looked at David with a sneering expression, his eyes were full of disdain and playfulness. At this time, looking at David was like looking at a dead man. David, I didn't expect you to dare to come by yourself. I admire you for being a man. Jordan got up and said. Stop talking nonsense, where's Sonia? David said indifferently. David, I'm here, you hurry up, they have guns in their hands. Sonia heard David's voice and desperately slammed the door in the room. Sonia. David frowned and ran towards the room. As soon as David moved, the two bodyguards stopped David at once, posing for a shot. At this moment, the door of the room was opened, Wei Dao held a gun in his hand and pushed Sonia out. Sonia's hair is fluffy, and there are still patches of smudges on her face, looking very embarrassed. After seeing David, Sonia shouted desperately, David, leave me alone, they don't dare to kill me, go away, go away. Shut up. Wei Dao was furious and slapped Sonia fiercely. Boom. David saw it in his eyes, and the raging murderous aura instantly swept away towards Wei Dao. Feeling the murderous aura on David, Wei Dao shivered all over and put the muzzle of his gun on Sonia's head. If you dare to move, I will shoot her to death. Wei Dao looked at David with horror in his eyes. David, you're here today, don't even think about leaving, this is your grave, do you think it's great to know Lin Tianyu and Ji Wenchen? You still dare to show prestige in front of me, now none of them can save you. Jordan remembered that when he was lowly in front of David, his heart was full of anger, he walked to David in 2 steps, and slapped David. Chapter 287. David stretched out his hand and grabbed Jordan's wrist. I can show prestige in front of you, but it is not for others, but myself. Click. Jordan's other arm was also pinched off by David. What? The severe pain made Jordan scream, and the sound echoed in the abandoned factory building. Bang. Immediately afterwards, David kicked Jordan's lower abdomen fiercely. Buff. Jordan spewed out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew upside down, and then curled up like shrimp. You. Jordan stared at David angrily. I gave you a chance, but you don't know how to take it. David walked towards Jordan with a gloomy face. Kill him, kill him. Jordan looked at David like that, and his heart began to be afraid. The two bodyguards looked at Wei Dao, and now they only listened to Wei Tao's words. Wei Dao nodded. Kill him. The two bodyguards glanced at each other and charged directly towards David. David's footsteps did not stop. Just when the two bodyguards rushed in front of him, David suddenly shot and directly stuck the throats of the two bodyguards. The two sturdy bodyguards were actually picked up by David with their necks stuck. The two bodyguards blushed, and the suffocation made them struggling desperately. Click, click. The sound of 2 bone cracks sounded, and the bodyguard who had been struggling desperately tilted his head, and all of them lost their anger. Bang. As soon as David let go, the bodies of the two bodyguards fell heavily to the ground, causing bursts of dust. This time, Jordan and Wei Dao were both dumbfounded. The two bodyguards at the peak of their internal strength didn't even make a move under David's hands. Wei Tao's hands began to tremble, his heart was full of fear, even with a gun in his hand, it couldn't give him the slightest sense of security. That Jordan endured the severe pain, climbed to Wei Tao's feet, and said with a trembling voice, Master Wei, shoot him quickly. Only then did Wei Dao react, and he raised his hand and was about to shoot at David. David, be careful. Sonia yelled, opened her mouth and took a bite on Wei Tao's arm. What? Wei Dao yelled in pain and pushed Sonia away. David. Sonia ran towards David. Wei Tao's face was hideous, he raised the pistol in his hand and shot directly at Sonia. Boom. The gunshot rang, David's eyes narrowed, and his body flashed in front of Sonia instantly, protecting Sonia behind him. Swoosh. The bullet flew past David's head, and Sonia behind him could hear the screeching sound of the bullet passing by. Seeing that one shot was missed, Wei Dao gritted his teeth and fired 2 more shots in a row. Bang bang. After 2 shots were fired, Wei Dao was surprised to find that David was still looking at him coldly, approaching them step by step, and there was no sign of being shot at all. Paralyzed, what a broken gun. Wei Dao cursed angrily, grabbed the pistol with both hands, stabilized himself, and aimed another shot at David. The bullet missed again, but it still failed to hit David. This time, Wei Dao panicked, the bullet seemed to have eyes, and it didn't shoot at David at all. When Wei Dao pulled the trigger again, the pistol made a clicking sound, and there were no more bullets. Wei Dao looked at David who walked in horror, threw the gun in his hand directly at David, and then turned around to run. Master Wei, save me, save me. Jordan fell to the ground at this time, the severe pain made him unable to get up at all, he hugged Wei Tao's leg tightly, hoping that Wei Dao would take him away. Wei Dao didn't care about Jordan, he kicked Jordan furiously. Numb, let me go, let go. Chapter 288. Jordan didn't let go at all, he knew that Wei Dao had run away, and he would definitely die. At this time, David had already walked up to him and grabbed Wei Tao's collar. You, what are you going to do? I'm from the Wei family. If you dare to touch me, my dad won't let you go. Wei Dao was shaking all over, threatening David. Snapped. David slapped Wei Dao in the face with a slap in the face, causing Wei Dao to turn around several times, and the teeth in his mouth fell out. This slap was returned to you for Sonia. After David finished speaking, he punched Wei Dao in the stomach, causing Wei Dao to make a scream like killing a pig, and fell to the ground with his body hunched over. At this time, Wei Dao and Jordan were like prawns, all hunched over their bodies, showing expressions of pain. Looking at the two people on the ground, David stepped on Jordan's head with one foot. David, I was wrong, please forgive me, forgive me. Jordan's trousers were urinated from fright. I promise I will never trouble you again, I can give you all the Xiao family property. As long as you take my life around me. Jordan pleaded with David. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. David looked at Jordan coldly, his feet suddenly exerted force. Puff. Jordan's head was like a well-ripened watermelon, it burst directly under David's feet, and the blood splashed mixed with the brain, and directly sprayed Wei Dao, who was not far away. What? Wei Dao was stunned. He had never seen such a bloody scene before. A living person was trampled on his head in front of him. At this time, Sonia, who was behind David, was also very frightened. She covered her mouth with her hands, and tried her best not to make a sound. It was the first time she saw David kill people, and killing people so cruelly, but Sonia knew that what David did, everything I do is for her, and the more murderous David is now, the more weight he has in David's heart. David raised his blood-stained feet and stepped on Wei Dao's head, feeling the disgusting smell of blood. Wei Dao panicked, his pants got wet unconsciously, and desperately followed David to beg for mercy. Don't kill me, I can give you anything you want, anything. I want your life. David's voice sounded like it was coming from the abyss of H3LL, frightening Wei Dao's feces and urine. David. Sonia stepped forward and pulled David away. You can't kill him, don't be impulsive. Sonia knew that Jordan would kill him if he killed him. With the strength of the Su family and Ji Wenchen, they could settle it, but Wei Dao was different. He belonged to the Wei family in the provincial capital. If you kill Wei Dao, don't do it. Speaking of these people, even if Ling Zhenchuan came forward, I am afraid that the Wei family would not give up. Sonia, I'm sorry for making you suffer. David looked at the 5 clear fingerprints on Sonia's red face, and slowly stroked it. I'm fine, let's go back, don't let Dad worry too much. Feeling the temperature on David's hand, Sonia felt warm inside. David nodded and looked back at Wei Dao, who was so frightened that Wei Dao did not dare to look directly into David's eyes. The death penalty can be avoided, but the living crime cannot escape. After David finished speaking, he stepped on Wei Dao's leg and directly crushed Wei Dao's calf bone. It was impossible to connect. What? Wei Dao's face was full of pain, and he roared sternly. Let's go. David took Sonia's hand and said softly. Just 2 steps away, Sonia looked back at Wei Dao and asked, who the H3LL told you this and brought you to Horrendal? Sonia is very strange, who recruited Wei Dao from the provincial capital, as Jordan, he has no ability to contact Wei Dao at all. Chapter 289. It's Ling Feng, he asked me to come, everything he told me. Wei Dao endured the pain and followed Sonia. At this time, Wei Dao still has his own little abacus. Ling Feng is the son of the city's top leader. Now tell him, he wants to see if David will go to Ling Feng. If David does something to Ling Feng, then he can watching the fire from the other side. Hearing that it was Ling Feng, killing intent flashed in David's eyes. Sonia looked at David like that, and immediately regretted it. If she had known her, she would not have asked Wei Dao. David, it's all right, don't look for anyone. Sonia is afraid that David will trouble Ling Feng. Yeah. David nodded, then hugged Sonia. Sonia buried her head in David's chest and felt the temperature of David's chest. Sonia enjoyed the indescribable sense of security. From now on, I won't let anyone hurt you again, never. David looked at Sonia in his arms and said with a guilty face. I believe in you. Sonia stretched out her hands, hooked David's neck, and SSED David directly on the face. This is the first time that 2 people have had such close contact. Although the 2 of them are tacitly aware of their love and affection for each other, it is the first time that they have had such an intimate contact. David got into the car with Sonia in his arms, and then hurried all the way to the Su family villa. In the abandoned factory building, Wei Dao desperately wanted to stand up, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stand up at all. Looking at his bloody legs, Wei Dao roared furiously, David, I will never let you go. In the Su family villa, Ruben was already sweating profusely, and he has been with Sonia for many years. Sonia is more important than his life. Soon, David drove to a stop at the door. When Sonia got out of the car, she saw Ruben at the door and jumped up. Dad. Holding Ruben, Sonia's tears flowed out. Daughter, are you all right? Ruben also burst into tears, with killing intent in his eyes. Who is it? Even if I try my best, I will tear him to pieces. Uncle, it's all right, just leave the rest to me. David said to Ruben. Ruben looked at David and nodded. David, I will hand over all the family business of my Sioux family to you. Even if it is all exhausted, I will make the other party pay the price. Sonia is Ruben's life, he can endure anything, but Ruben will never endure it. I understand. David nodded. David was about to leave when he got in the car, but Sonia grabbed him. David, Jordan is dead, so Wei Dao has also learned a lesson, don't go to anyone else. Sonia was afraid that David would have trouble finding Ling Feng, and it would not end well then. Don't worry. David smiled lightly and stroked Sonia's head. After getting in the car and leaving, David called Lin Tianyu. Lin Tianyu, let Xiao Yan collect the body of his son, and let the Xiao family get out of Horrendal within 3 days. After 3 days, I don't want to see the Xiao family alone in Horrendal. If that Xiao Yan wants to seek revenge on me, let him, he comes to me anytime. There is no doubt in David's tone. Understood, leave it to me. Lin Tianyu nodded. To deal with a decaying Xiao family, Lin Tianyu alone is enough, and he will not give Xiao Yan a chance to seek revenge from David. And David's car went straight to Ling Zhenchuan's house, and Ling Feng was the culprit, so David couldn't just bypass him like this, even if his father was the city leader. Chapter 290. In Ling Zhenchuan's house, Ling Feng is staying at home. Ling Zhenchuan has been watching very closely these days and is not allowed to go out. Ling Feng counted the time, frowning slightly. This Wei Dao, how many days have passed, and there is no movement at all. Ling Feng was a little anxious. It had been several days, and Wei Dao had never contacted him at all, which proved that he had not succeeded. Thing. Wang Wei was cooking in the kitchen, and Ling Zhenchuan hurried in from outside. Seeing Ling Zhenchuan coming back, Wang Wei stuck her head out of the kitchen and said, Lao Ling, why do you have time to come back for lunch today? What to eat? Something happened, I'll come back with something. Ling Zhenchuan's face was a little anxious. What happened? Wang Wei came out of the kitchen. The Jordan from the Xiao family was killed, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is that Wei Dao, the kid from the Wei family in the provincial capital, also had his leg broken and is still in the hospital. It is estimated that this time the Wei family I won't let it go. Ling Zhenchuan frowned tightly. The strength of the Wei family in the provincial capital is no trivial matter, and it can be enjoyed in both political and business circles. This time his son has an accident in Horrendal, he will definitely not let it go. The kid of the Wei family, what is he doing in Horrendal? Who is so bold that even the kid of the Wei family dares to move? Wang Wei couldn't help but exclaimed. And when Ling Feng on the side heard it, his whole body shuddered with fright, and his face became extremely pale. Don't ask, I can't tell you. Ling Zhenchuan waved his hand, he knew that David did it, but David had a life-saving grace for him. Ling Zhenchuan didn't want to reveal David, he saw if he could find a way to help David settle it. Okay, I won't ask, you have to be careful yourself, don't do everything in person, the Wei family dares to move, this person is afraid to do anything. Wang Wei reminded Ling Zhenchuan that those who can do something to the Wei family must be outlaws who are not afraid of heaven and earth. Wow. Just as Wang Wei finished speaking, there was a sudden cracking sound. Ling Feng fell to the ground with the water glass in his hand, trembling all over. Xiao Feng, what's wrong with you? Seeing Ling Feng's appearance, Wang Wei hurried forward and touched Ling Feng's forehead. Why is his face so ugly, is he ill? Mom, I'm fine, I'm going upstairs. Ling Feng shivered and stood up, ready to go upstairs. Ling Zhenchuan frowned slightly, looking at Ling Feng, he seemed to be thinking about something. At this moment, the door was pushed open, and David stepped in. David's body had a murderous aura and a strong smell of blood. As soon as he entered the door and saw Ling Feng, his eyes were fascinated together. Mr. Chen. When Ling Zhenchuan saw that David was here, and there was still blood on his body, he shouted with confusion on his face. And when Ling Feng saw David appear, he slumped on the ground and almost peed his pants. Seeing his son being frightened like this, Ling Zhenchuan was shocked, he seemed to understand something. I ask you, did you bring Wei Dao and kidnap Sonia? David ignored Ling Zhenchuan and went directly to Ling Feng to ask. What? Wei Dao kidnapped Sonia. Ling Feng's eyes widened, he didn't expect Wei Dao to dare to do this. Ling Feng hurriedly shook his head. No, I didn't let him kidnap Sonia, I really didn't. Seeing that her son was frightened, Wang Wei felt a little distressed and said to David, Mr. Chen, is this a misunderstanding? Shut up. Ling Zhenchuan shouted at Wang Wei, and then glared at Ling Feng fiercely. I ask you, why did Wei Dao come to Horrendal? Did you call him? Chapter 281. Being with Wei Dao these few days, Delia also feels that her worth has risen a lot, and she can no longer look down on Jordan. Jordan was stunned, looking at Delia like that, and scolding inwardly, but still gave her Sonia's phone number. With Sonia's phone number, Delia dialed directly. At this time, Sonia was sitting bored in the yard at home, with an unhappy expression on her face. It's been so many days since David died, and he hasn't come once. Do you blame me for talking about him last time? Sonia was entangled in her heart. She wanted to find David, but she also hoped that David would take the initiative to find herself. This kind of contradictory psychology made Sonia upset. At this moment, the phone rang. Sonia thought it was David calling. She picked up the phone with a look of joy, and found out that it was an unfamiliar number. Hello. Sonia answered the phone. Sonia, I'm Delia. I'm at No. 17 Fengwang Road. I want to meet you and talk about David. As soon as the call was connected, Delia said directly, in a domineering tone, without taking Sonia in the slightest. If Delia was given 100 courage, she would not dare to talk to Sonia like this. Now that she has followed Wei Dao, Delia has grown a lot more courageous. You let me go, I'll go, what are you? Sonia was irritated by Delia's tone of voice. Sonia, if you are afraid, then don't come. After Delia finished speaking, she hung up the phone without waiting for Sonia to reply. Sonia listened to the busy tone on the phone, and her face flushed red. What are you pulling? I want to see what kind of cattle you have. Sonia got up and drove to Fengwang Road. When Sonia arrived at Fengwang Road, she saw that Delia was waiting for her. Tell me, what do you want to tell me about David? Sonia got out of the car and asked Delia coldly. I want to tell you that David is going to die soon. Delia suddenly smiled grimly. Sonia looked at Delia like that, her heart was shocked. She glared at Delia and said, what nonsense are you talking about? How could David die? He didn't talk nonsense. David is really dying, because I will kill him soon. At this time, Jordan walked out with the 2 bodyguards of the Wei family. What are you going to do? Seeing this, Sonia stepped back in fright. She felt something was wrong. What are we going to do? You will know in a while. Jordan raised the corner of his mouth. Arrest her. The 2 bodyguards stepped forward to grab Sonia and knocked Sonia unconscious.